This is my response video for the high stakes have a strong impact quote. I think for me, high stakes is kind of interesting and fun. The way I break up my course in units, it's in basically 4 parts. The first day is an information day. The second day, that information day is where I teach them about whatever topic we're kind of going into and some of the necessary things that they need to know. The day after that is a notebook day. That's where we're identifying the problem that I've kind of just posed to them and figuring out some real world connections. And then also coming up with some solutions and sketches to how that idea, or to that idea, and what we can draw to make, potentially. After that's followed by a build day. That build day takes those exact sketches that they just worked on, and they start to actually build their prototype. After that is the test day, which I consider to be the highest stake day. That has students actually physically testing out their prototypes. And a lot of times the testing is done between a small group or even whole group. So with that, a lot of the time students do like to do well. So that pressure of being successful or coming up with a solution that works is where the high stakes come into play. I'm very happy. I would never ever want the high stakes in my room to be about grades. So I'm super fortunate in the fact that I can have my students focus on an entirely different aspect of it and not worry about grades so much. I think if I can get them to focus on the process instead of the end result, that's a far better strategy and a far happier strategy. I don't want any of my students worried about stress or anxiety about connecting to the grades, so much more focused on the end result and what they learn out of the whole process instead of a letter or a number or a standard. Some of the consequences that we talk about, I think what stuck with me most was sometimes the necessity to have some difficult conversations with students. I think the consequences of that we don't always feel comfortable. So kind of that uneasy feeling about having a necessary conversation with a student that you know that they're not really going to enjoy the conversation so much or be particularly happy to hear it, but you know that it's necessary to have. I think sometimes too that conversation might be followed up with a even maybe more difficult conversation with a parent who may agree or disagree. Simpler consequences come with maybe trying something out in the classroom and it not working. I know my first and second year when I wrote all this curriculum, it was nearly a day-to-day thing where I'd try something and kind of feel that disappointment of it not working or not going as well as I planned or hoped. So some of those consequences are kind of tough because of how they make you feel, and maybe they make you do something a second time. The risks, I think, are more than ever our day-to-day and situations in our class are changing. The risks that teachers are facing are more and more. I feel like nearly every day there's a lawsuit or something that a teacher or district has to deal with. And more responsibilities too. Teachers are being asked to do a ton more, and with those new responsibilities, more risks are coming. I think more specifically, a ton of things like extra help, before or after school, students dealing with different types of allergies, the student population changing to where some students are actually physical with other students or even look to hurt themselves because they don't know how to cope and deal. And a lot of these situations can be scary for a teacher, including myself. New trainings almost every day, every year. You have different all-calls over the loudspeakers of the classrooms to help assist, or even if the situation's in your room, you have to be ready and you have to be prepared to do that. Risks can be simpler too, kind of like I mentioned in our consequences, a risk of trying something new, teaching it a different way, and totally having it flop, and be ready to come back and teach it again. I think my coaching kind of connects to this sometimes too. Unfortunately, I just lost a student to suicide this last month in January, and I think that makes me always think of the idea of worrying about the student as a whole, and are we really, really connecting with them? Are we really, really doing our best? And I think that's just hard and a risk that we take every day. And I think some of my answers were serious or maybe dramatic, but I just think that's how I interpret the words risk or consequences. I kind of view them with that negative, serious connotation tone. So I'm sure there's other simpler answers and things like that, but this is kind of what came to my mind first. So again, thank you, Dr. Flynn. Have a great day.